Love them or hate them, master plan communities are here to stay, and you need to know what to look out for. Well, hey everyone, I'm Wendy Pennell, and there are a lot of things that can go wrong with a master plan community. But the first one that really comes to mind is when you never get one in the first place. That's right, you're living there, you're paying for it, but there's still a giant field where that water park is supposed to be. So your first step when considering a master plan community is always to ask, when will they build the amenities? Like, some builders won't know what is even being built in the community, right? It's common to hear them vaguely refer to the developer about how they may do this or that, and it might happen in phase 2 or phase 3. And it's not that they're intentionally being vague here, okay? Most of the time, it's the developer who's responsible for the amenities. Now, sometimes it's the builder, but I would say most often, you'll never actually meet the party responsible for bringing in that amenity center. Now, while some builders will intentionally be non-committal in any comments they make, other builders will make huge promises, and it can be years before you ever see anything. An example of this is the Venetian community in Salina. They first announced a lagoon among numerous other amenities back in 2020, and homeowners still don't have those amenities. Okay, that's 4 years later. Can you imagine excitedly buying a home there in 2020 and paying HOA fees for a lagoon all this time? Anytime you buy into a community where they're just breaking ground, you need to know you're taking on that risk. I mean, you could be paying for these amenities for years before the amenities get there. So will it be worth it? Well, I mean, some of you, may say yeah, absolutely, right? Because it's all about the community. But here's what you should consider, okay? The average person lives in the same house for less than 5 years. You could literally pay the HOA, PID, and MUD on amenities you never even use once, okay? So talk about being ripped off. You spend all those years paying for someone else to enjoy them down the line. So if we know the builders themselves don't even know when amenities will be built most of the time, how do you prevent this? How are you going to know for sure the amenities will be built? Well, you should always, right, start off with the contract, right? Are the amenities referenced in the contract anywhere? Okay, is there any place you can know for sure what amenities a new community will have, right? Is it in writing anywhere? Because always think to yourself, anything you can get in writing is more enforceable. And really, that's what you're after here, right? What is your recourse if the builder doesn't build the amenities, okay? Now, even more worrisome is you're buying from the builder who probably isn't even in control of all this, right? So where can you turn? Well, there are several places to do your homework on getting these answers, but the important thing here is to always put the onus on the sales consultant and builder to prove it to you, okay? Because if they really want the sale, make them work for it and do your best to get them to help you out here. Okay, but in the meantime, right, some places you could potentially find the answers to your questions are, okay, are you ready? Number 1, your sales contract. Right, I mentioned that earlier. If you can get this information into the contract between you and the builder, okay, that's always the best situation. Second, look at the conditions, covenants, and restrictions of the community. All right, many times that will be included as an addendum right in the contract, but not always, okay, because sometimes you'll have to go look it up online. All right. Next up, look to the city and the developer, okay? Remember, the developer is the one planning all of the amenities, and it's the city who the developer has to get permission from in the first place, okay? So now we're talking about city websites, okay? Recorded documents such as the Public Information District. You may be able to find the information there. All right, now I'm gonna be honest with you. I spent a ton of time researching this, trying to find one main place that you could make sure you're getting your amenities, but I found it in multiple sources, okay? So ultimately, all right, what you don't want is to accept the builder's word, saying the developer gives his word that he's putting this stuff in, okay? Because remember, you're not gonna have a contract with the developer. Your contract will be with the builder. So as you're trying to gather answers on this, picture yourself in front of a judge in court, saying the amenities were never built. All right, what information would you need to prove your case, okay? Because that's the mindset you want to have. Okay, so what all do I mean when I say amenities, right? What's the actual definition of a master plan community? Well, master plan communities are large scale, mixed-use developments with amenities that aim to give residents the experience of living in a self-contained town. All right, amenities can include parks, playgrounds, swimming pools, tennis courts, golf courses, and a lot more. Some also offer commercial things like stores and restaurants. You also may have on-site schools. I mean, get this, sometimes they even have lifestyle directors, okay, like you would see like on a cruise or a camp, all right? An example of this is the Harvest community in Argyle. Okay, Harvest has its own lifestyle director along with social clubs, annual festivals, hobby groups, community groups, okay? So it really takes the master plan concept to the absolute next level. It has a pool, a pond with fountain, fitness area, event lawn, clubhouse, okay? It even has like this huge farm meant to garden enough produce for the entire community. Now that sounds wonderful, right? But here's what you can't forget. Someone has to pay for all of that, and someone has to maintain it too. So if you want the master plan community lifestyle, plan on extra expenses in your budget, okay? Because in a typical neighborhood of pre-owned homes, you may not even have an HOA. And if you do, it might be like a really small amount. All right, that's not gonna be the case, okay, if you want a master plan community. So make sure you're ready for it to take a good size bite out of your wallet. Not only that, okay, but HOAs aren't the only thing, all right? You could also have a PID or a MUD, okay? Now, before I keep throwing around all these terms, all right, let's talk about what an HOA, PID, and MUD are, okay? An HOA stands for Homeowners Association, all right? That's basically a governing body meant to maintain the quality of life within a community. Your HOA in a master plan community is gonna be more expensive because it has a whole lot more to maintain. Now, how about a PID? Because that's a completely different thing. According to Collin County area realtors, a PID is a special district created by a city or county that allows a city or county to charge a tax against properties within the designated area to pay for improvements. They continue saying some developers will use a PID instead of an HOA to fund infrastructure within development. So if you understood all of that, okay, you can probably guess that it's pretty common for master plan communities to use PIDs to raise money for all the amenities and recreation they have planned. So think 2 extra payments in addition to your housing payment. Just as an example, Salina is very popular in the Dallas area, and it has a ton of master plan communities. All right, you're gonna find a lot of PIDs here. For example, you have Cambridge Crossing, Chalk Hill number 2, Creeks of Legacy, Glen Crossing, Owensby Farms, Parks at Wilson Creek, Sutton Fields, the Columns, the Lakes at Mustang Ranch, Bluewood, and Liliana. Okay, and that was just from like a quick online search. So basically, with master plan communities, always expect an HOA, and you'll often have a PID as well. Okay, so that covers HOAs and PIDs, okay, but you may also have a MUD. Okay, so what is a MUD? Again, the Collin County Realtors helps us out here. They explain MUDs are created under the authority of the Texas Commission of Environmental Quality and provide water, sewage, drainage, or other utility-related services to new developments. Now listen up here, okay, as they continue. MUDs are likely to exist in large master plan developments that when started fell outside city limits or outside the area where a city was providing utility services. Now in theory, okay, a MUD tax should go down over time, right? Because the initial infrastructure costs are eventually, going to be repaid. So only money to maintain services would be collected. But you should know this. They also continue. The only way a MUD tax is eliminated is if the MUD area is annexed by the city. If this happens, the city pays off the MUD debt and the utility payments are paid to the city. Now also, okay, and this is important, according to Collin County Realtors, the homeowners within the MUD pay off the bonds and pay for utility services through a MUD tax. A MUD tax will be in lieu of a city tax. So HOA, an extra expense. PID tax, an extra expense, okay? But the MUD, well, it will replace city taxes. Now, Collin County Realtors even lists a couple of well-known communities that have MUDs, okay? That's what they say. A few recent North Texas developments that are classified as MUDs are Light Farms in Salina, Artesia in Prosper, and Trinity Falls in McKinney. Now, I want to flip this coin for just a minute. What if you're looking at a master plan community that doesn't have the amenities yet, right? Like we were discussing earlier, okay? You need to be asking yourself, how are they going to pay for it? Okay, like the Venetian community I mentioned earlier. Okay, Megatel is the builder, and they're promising a lagoon, white sand beaches, a water slide tower. And from what I can tell, they don't have a PID or a MUD. So as unwelcome as a PID tax is, if there isn't a PID, okay, and there are all kinds of amenities being planned, all right, you bet your bottom dollar that would really raise a red flag for me. So number one, you may not get the amenities you're being promised. And number two, even if you don't have them, you're going to pay more for them. But another thing you need to know is that you can expect the HOA to be stricter than your average neighborhood HOA as well. Okay, now not only will it probably be stricter, it will also be more likely to micromanage everything, okay? Because by its very nature, it has to be more hands-on. There are also a lot more things that can go wrong. Okay, a lot more things that can break, which means you'll get blessed with special assessments. And that's just another way of saying you have another bill to pay. All right, well, let's just say, for example, like there's a major storm, okay, that comes through the area, large tree falls on the clubhouse and pool. Next thing you know, you have significant structural damage and insurance won't cover enough to make the repairs. All right, so the HOA issues a special assessment to the community to cover it. It doesn't even have to be an effort to repair damage either, okay? Let's say the HOA board decides that the clubhouse needs granite countertops in the community kitchen. All right, could a special assessment be issued to cover the expenses beyond the budget for it? Well, absolutely, if they wanted to, okay? If you're a homeowner in a master plan community with all kinds of bells and whistles, just kind of know in the back of your mind that there are probably going to be more expenses even beyond the HOA and PID, okay, because there's just more that can go wrong there. Now, speaking of strict HOA rules, if you're buying in a master plan community, do not plan on making it into a rental, okay? You can expect some seriously strict regulations about making your home into a rental when you live within a master plan community. And I'm not just talking about the HOA either. All right, many times the actual sales contracts will forbid it. For example, the MI Homes contract for Liliana reads, purchaser hereby represents to seller by signing below that they are purchasing this home with the intention of using such home as an owner-occupied residence and do not intend to lease, rent, or flip the property to another party. Or how about this contract with Normandy Homes and Windsong Ranch? They devote an entire page of the contract to making you promise you will not make your home into a rental. Windsong Ranch has been created as an established community of owner-occupied residences. Your right to lease your property is subject to various rules and regulations which can be enforced by the Windsong Ranch Community Association. And they're not done yet, okay? They continue. By executing below, you are hereby acknowledging as a new owner in Windsong Ranch that you are hereby confirming your intent to occupy and otherwise utilize your home and your lot as your primary residence without the intent to lease all or a portion of your residence for any length of time. I mean, that's not exactly open-ended. If you're wondering about its enforceability, we were recently showing a home in Windsong Ranch there in Prosper, which was owned by an incredibly motivated seller. Okay, because he had purchased the home to be a rental and he never took the time to read the HOA documents. I mean, immediately after closing, he found out he couldn't put the home up for lease. And so he had to immediately turn around and list it back for sale. All right, now all the while that he's doing that, right, he's having to make those mortgage payments. So if you're an investment-minded buyer and you're hoping to invest in rentals at some point, master plan communities may not be a great fit for you. Moving on, before you buy in a master plan community, you need to know that you're gonna have a small yard. Okay, there will typically be yard sizes by width in the 40-foot, 50 or 60s, and then also like townhomes as well. Now, some of you might be thinking, like a small yard sounds great because it means less maintenance, okay? And yeah, okay, that's definitely a pro, but don't forget to consider the cons as well, okay? You'll be more exposed to your neighbors, okay? Dogs barking, loud music, okay, could be right next to your bedroom window. Okay, so why? Why do they do this? Why are the yards always so ridiculously small? Well, master plan communities are meant to feel like, their own little, exclusive town, right? So small yards and houses kind of encourages socialization. And here's another big thing though, they're meant to be walkable, right? So if you have if each house has really big yards, that reduces the walkability of the entire neighborhood. Now, going back to PIDs and MEDs for a moment, another thing you need to know before you buy is that PIDs and MEDs can affect resale value. The Collin County Association of Realtors again shares with us that a home in a PID or a MED might be less expensive than a home in a competing development that does not include a PID or a MED. You have to know future potential sellers will calculate the PID and the MED into their monthly payment and their budget. So on the one hand, the gorgeous amenities will make the neighborhood more appealing, which helps with property values, right? But keep in mind, someone who thought they could afford $700,000 in a neighborhood with a MED and a PID, they probably can't afford, $700,000 anymore. So your best bet, okay, is if you can get gorgeous amenities without a PID or MED. The Collin County Realtors, they say it all when they state that the decision whether or not to use a PID or a MED to fund development can have long-term implications and impact the marketability of a neighborhood. So as a buyer interested in a master plan community, what you really need to know is to be strategic where you buy, okay? When you think about the fact it's gonna affect your budget as well as resale value, you definitely want to do your due diligence with where you buy. All right, for example, okay, buy where cheap county taxes will offset the expense of the PID, okay? And rule of thumb here, most Dallas area counties are gonna have a tax estimator to help you find those lower county taxes before you buy. So you're gonna be paying more, okay, possibly for amenities you may never even get to see, much less enjoy. And you're absolutely going to have an HOA, which is probably gonna be more strict. In fact, before you even decide for sure on a master plan community, you really need to understand HOAs. All right, now lucky for you, I made a video all about HOAs that you can watch right here. In the meantime, Wendy out.